Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Play Path of Radiance for the Nintendo GameCube. Last time we had finished up Chapter 7, and we had witnessed our father's defeat at the hands of the Black Knight. So these are dark times for Greil Mercenaries indeed, and we're going to see how they cope with it moving forward. Probably not all too well. I know that's not necessarily something to laugh about, but oh boy, it definitely brought down the mood even further. Like, we've already had the tension just working against us, starting from Chapter 4, and it's just been a constant downward spiral ever since these events have transpired. Well, I don't know if that's a good quality to have, honestly. I mean, it obviously has its own fair share of strengths and weaknesses, but okay, so Greil has already kind of believed a knight from the get-go. He's seen it ever since he was a child. This honestly kind of reminds me of when I lost my grandparents 2 years ago. It's so unreal, you know? Like, I was probably closer to my grandparents on my mom's side than I ever was my dad, for instance. And, like, for them to have both passed away within the same year, just left a big, huge, gaping hole in my life. Because now the people who shaped and influenced you growing up, they're no longer there. And you can no longer consult them. So the only thing you really have to go off of are memories. And you have to hold those memories dear and near to you. It's hard. I honestly understand. It sucks. Growing up sucks sometimes because you have to deal with constant loss throughout your life, and you have to learn from these experiences and don't let them and hinder you too much moving forward. You have to take all of these memories and mold them into like a better you moving forward. And that's exactly what Ike's going to have to do from this point forward. That really does set up an antagonist pretty damn well, though. I have to give Path of Radiance credit. This actually kind of reminds me of Force Awakens, actually, now that I think about it, because, like, Kylo Ren was this really socially awkward looking fucking Sith Lord, and, like, you didn't think much of him at first, and then when he just kind of gave closure to his dad when he finally stabbed him in the back, literally, that really set up the antagonist pretty damn well. So hey, if you want to write a good antagonist, have them kill off somebody, near and dear to you, and it'll set up the perfect, like, story, I think. It just depends on how well the rest of the game plays off of that. And this honestly hit me, for real. So, yeah, this is sad and all, but we do have to move forward. We're gonna have to see how the rest of the Mercenary Co. Copes with this. And I don't imagine everyone's going to be taking it too well. Despair and Hope. That is an appropriate title name, actually. I think that's a very good chapter title. That's the $1 million question, huh? Mist is always kind of just running around doing her whole thing, huh? Ike kind of handles this pretty decently well, though. He's a bit too apologetic, though, but he definitely realizes the gravity of the situation. But he's not necessarily taking it into like the best accord too perfectly well. He is kind of blaming himself a little too much. Well, that kind of makes sense actually, considering what chapter 3 was already kind of foreshadowing at the end of it all. Yeah, someone just literally spelled it out right there and then without having to come up with a complicated like explanation. Soren just speaks his fucking mind. I love Soren for that. We need more people like him. But yeah, they were already talking about how like they weren't really all too interested in the little activities they were taking on with Greil Mercenaries. They felt it was very beneath them, and I guess it was just a matter of time until they decided to split the coup. Shinan didn't particularly like Ike all that much either. He probably had more negative spite towards him than literally anybody else. Oof. Well, that certainly explains why all the pressure has been put upon us. Yeah, that sounds like a realistic reaction. Very much so. Maybe Greil could see the fucking future or something. I don't know. Well, he's very much right. Like, we haven't really had too many new party members as of late. They've mostly been primarily Greil mercenary like units. But from this point forward, we will be running into multiple new party members. And don't hurt yourself like that, dude. Have a little confidence. I mean, I understand. I understand. Like, you definitely feel like you're kind of responsible for this, considering like what Shinan has said in the past. But you also have to kind of be like, well, there's not really much I can say or do. He's one person. As long as everybody else has my back, then who gives a fuck what he says? I definitely had to learn that moving forward because sometimes, no matter how nice or kind you are to people, there's always going to be that small handful of people that just despises you for no fucking reason other than to either spite you or you don't fit their fucking social criteria. And you just have to be like, well, I did what I could do. I'm just gonna have to like be like, well, I'm not gonna let this affect me. I'm just gonna move on and not let this hurt me moving forward. Man, I'm just dumping all the life facts on here, huh? There's some good messages here for sure. Again, when the writing is good, it really is good. Like the dialogue definitely seems like it's improving over the course of the game, and I can't help but feel like a lot of this was like not necessarily planned out from the get go, but like it was kind of improv most of the way through, because like I was kind of making fun of Ike's voice actor early on, but the thing is, he actually ends up getting better as the game goes on, and you can kind of say that for the dialogue and the voice acting too. So Path of Radiance is definitely a game that does get progressively better the further you go. And it doesn't have the best start for sure, but like I love it. I think a game that ends on a stronger note is much more powerful than one that starts off strong, I'd say. Because it gives you something to look forward to as opposed to, well, okay, I'm going to have this bit of energy going in and then I'm expected to lose it all towards the latter half. That's why I'm not a big fan of games like Mega Man 3, for example, where the later half of that game is just not all that great. Very random example, I know. There's probably some others I can think of, like Tales of Vesperia. Starts off strong, really good mid-game. Uh, the last third of the game or whatever is kind of like, what? Not bad, but it also feels like it's very disconnected as well, if that makes any sense. Oh boy, economics. Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So anyway. Yeah, if someone's not asking questions during your statements, chances are they're not 100% paying attention. Well, the best way to learn is to learn it gradually, I suppose. Alright, so now we have access to the base, one of the single best additions to Path of Radiance, and something that's going to make my playthrough way less stressful. So, if you couldn't already tell, by the time a chapter usually ends, or starts, like, we have to go through a good bit of story for things to keep moving. And, like, by the time a chapter ends, I don't always have the energy to be able to keep the commentary going for the extra story on top of what's already been told before the chapter started. And yeah, I won't lie, I'm still kind of new to this Fire Emblem commentary, and I've been trying my best to manage as I go, but sometimes I just don't have a whole lot to say unless it's on my mind. And I apologize if my commentary runs dry at some points, but hopefully moving forward it'll be a lot better. So we're out of the early game and we have access to the base, and this here, I fucking love the base. I really wish they would have brought something like this back in future Fire Emblem games. This is like a Talia series exclusive, because for most other Fire Emblem games, when you're doing all of this pre-chapter preparation, it's usually during the preparations part of the actual chapter battle, and not like an event beforehand. So here we can actually go through our inventory and manage our items, like sending things to the convoy, because we finally have a convoy. Thank God, I've been having to get rid of so many fucking items lately. We can actually do some shopping. This game does have a skill feature, which I'll be going to into a bit. This game has supports. You can actually go around and ask NPCs different questions while you're at it. You can save. Basically, it's kind of like a more compact monastery from Three Houses. I always kind of found the monastery a bit too much because it was like this big scrawling like labyrinth that you were meant to explore, right? But at the end of the day, all you were really doing was doing fetch quests with very obvious end goals, and you're just doing some skill grinding, which could have very easily have been accomplished by a simple menu system. So I like how Path of Radiance keeps these things compact, and it adds sort of a breather in between battle. To grow and appreciate the world of Path of Radiance and the Talia Saga as a whole. So I'm going to go into each and every function here. I do want to mention that because of how I've mentioned how this kind of commentary puts a strain on my throat when I'm having to do both the story and the chapter battles and what have you. Basically, what I'm going to be doing moving forward is that the initial story beats and the base preparations are all going to be in one video, right? I'm going to be taking care of all of that within one video. And then moving forward, once we actually hit the chapter battles at the end of it, and that'll be its own separate line of videos. It just depends on how long the chapter battles pan out, you know? So, yeah, that'll be way less stressful for me moving forward, and the base is here to stay. Like, it's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, if at all. So, I'm actually going to be giving this fire book over to Soren. Now, it is an E ranked book, so Soren can still use it just fine. It's just that, well, he's not necessarily going to be making use out of higher level fire magic with it anytime soon. I did forget to mention that in this game, fire magic is more effective against beast lagoos than anything, but like, you don't really fight lagoos all that often, so that's why I didn't really bring that up in the last video when I was talking about the benefits of like wind magic over everything else. But it is lighter, so you are more likely to double with it than wind magic. Other than that, though, I do want to put this thief band and the convoy. And now I can actually go ahead and use the Seraph robe if I want. I'll go ahead and store these, so that way I'm not wasting anyone's time. And I might actually go ahead and give Oscar here a night band. Or wait, oh, no. So the bands that you get, I don't know if I went into big enough detail with these earlier. I don't think I have. But in this game, some of your units actually come with exclusive bands. And these actually influence your growth rates even further. So, like, if you have trouble playing catch-up with some of your units that you really like, you can actually throw these onto those units, and the growth rates will actually end up improving as a result. That being said, only certain units can take advantage of select bands. So, like, if I were to put a night band on Boyd, for example, I don't think that would really work. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have to buy some new things for our units. For certain. So let's go ahead and talk about the award experience and the skill. So BXP, I have alluded to this multiple times during the playthrough. So BXP is a feature exclusive to the Talia's games. You've seen us gain BXP after completing a map within a certain period of time. So the BXP is really good to have Because in Path of Radiance, you don't actually have additional bonus chapters. Like in the GBA games, for example, if you fulfilled certain criteria, then you could actually go through and take on some bonus chapters, and these usually led to you either gaining new units, influencing the story in some way, so forth. But Path of Radiance does not have that, meaning you don't actually have extra opportunities to go out and grind at all. The story is pretty linear. It's a point A to point B affair. No diverging paths. However, um, it makes up for this by having BXP, and you can actually distribute this to your units, and they can get some early level ups. So anybody who's falling behind, you can actually slap on some BXP right now, and you can get them caught up to speed. I'm going to be using a little bit of it during this video. God damn it, Path of Radiance. So, I'm probably going to have to actually do a little bit of this off screen, because I don't want shit like that happening all that often. So I will be sure to cover the bases of who I distribute BXP to off camera, or like after the base preparations, like when I go into the actual chapter battles and everything. So, yeah, I just don't want something like that happening again. Holy shit, that's so aggravating. So, yeah. Skills. Skills are something that, carried over from, Sacred Stones, actually. And, they actually have a capacity, depending on how many skills they can carry at a time. As far as I know, this capacity doesn't really improve at all, except outside of a promotion. But I'm not entirely sure on that. So basically, we're gonna see if we can assign one of these new skills I had just obtained earlier. I'm actually gonna put this on Ike, because Ike uh, probably could use this more than any other unit currently, considering that he is the main character, and if he dies, then we're all fucked. You have your support conversations, and luckily for me, I've actually been doing a pretty decent job in keeping the compatible units close to each other, as it should be. So, as I've mentioned before in some kind of capacity, dependent on what units you have by each other, you can actually kind of increase their stats a little bit. This could give them extra avoid, or speed, or defense, whatever. And not only does this help in that factor, you can also have little heart-to-hearts with each cast member. Now, you can't really have supports with everybody, as you can no doubt tell from these shorter lists, but you can have heart-to-hearts with each of these characters, and I'll be showing off everyone we run into over the course of the game. And this will be a good way of showing character development in between the scenes when the story isn't really doing its job. Which, now that I think about it though, Path of Radiance, despite its large cast, actually does a better job in handling its units and, like, their contributions to the story way more effectively than most other Fire Emblem games I've seen. Probably because Path of Radiance is a much bulkier game. And on top of that, you also have other conversations you can listen into as well through the info section, but we'll get to that in due time. Oh boy, the classic anime trope of, oh, this guy's a godlike cook, but the other guys are kind of shit at it. Why is this a thing in, like, every JRPG? I don't understand that. Why is it that cooking is such an integral part of, like, the side B stories or whatever? I don't understand it. Well, oh wow, Mist of all people is the one bad at cooking? Wait a second, that doesn't really make much sense. Like, weren't they just mentioning in one of the earlier chapters that they were actually looking forward to her meal after the battle was over? Like, what? But hey, at least she is improving, I guess. Well, that doesn't necessarily help, though, because then it's like, sure, you're making them happy, but you're not really telling them what to improve on either, but whatever. I'm no cook myself, so. Anywho, here in the info section, you can actually spot other party members either talking to themselves or talking with other NPCs under Lonesome, and perhaps gaining new things out of it. So the significance of these stars basically means that if you look into one of these, you can actually gain something new out of it. You can get something like an item or even a new party member. So check out the info section every time you start a chapter. I cannot stress enough how important it is. So these guys are going to be pretty important. A vendor of various goods. No, 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 no. Don't you be suggesting things. Oh boy, forging. We all know how broken forging is. At least in this game, I can't remember if it's this game or another Fire Emblem game, but I do believe like you can only forge like one weapon at a time per chapter. So you can't just forge willy-nilly as so long as you have the funds, because running into money is pretty damn easy in this game. A lot easier than most other Fire Emblem games, for that matter. But yeah, the one-star conversations are the most optional. You don't have to listen to these if you don't want to. But these are really good insights on like otherwise very good like character building moments that you wouldn't necessarily get out of the main story otherwise. So even if you don't have the support conversations, you generally have these to fall back on. They're like supports, kind of. Mist is just fine. When they say they're just fine, that obviously means more than that. All right, so let's see what's going on with Boyd and Rice. About what? Boyd's a lot more mature than he lets on sometimes. Damn, Rolf is that much younger than everybody else? Oof. That's true. That was really insightful, actually. It makes me appreciate these characters even more. God damn it, I fucking love Path of Radiance. Oh man, I love Path of Radiance's cast so much. This is why this is my favorite Fire Emblem game. There's never a dull moment in building these relationships, because like in other games, like you only really had supports to fall on to sometimes, and then outside of that, they never really made any major contributions to the story, and that's why I appreciate these info sections, because they keep up to maintenance between like how these units operate throughout the duration of the game, regardless of whether or not you have supports, because supports are only like limited in quantity after all, and they don't necessarily always highlight the events of what's going on at that specific point in the story. Because the way with info supports is that like these are often conversations that usually take place during these events of the chapters, so you can kind of see how these characters think and operate before these events and see what they think about all of this. And we seriously need more Fire Emblem games like this for sure. Like I do think Three Houses is definitely going in the right direction with the monastery and how that operates. Because obviously you can go and talk to the students and in their free time, and since you have a smaller cast to work with, there's more character development to delve into, obviously, and on top of having additional EX chapters. But I don't know, I find this method a little bit more effective personally. All right, so I do believe that gives us access to the shop, so I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of shopping for our units. Oh wow, we have steel axes available right off the get-go. Damn, okay. I'm definitely giving Titania some good stuff, for sure. And, let's see. No, steel swords, though. The only steel quantity things we have are the steel axes, huh? Okay, well, Boyd's not quite ready for a steel axe just yet, so we'll just send that over to the convoy. Do we have any javelins? No. I do know that this expands over the course of the game because you don't actually get to visit shops during the course of the game, like during the chapter battles like you normally do in Fire Emblem games, so a lot of that's generally done here. Yeah, I think he could probably use one right now. That Iron Lance looks like it's about ready to break. And I think that's going to be all the shopping I do for now. I think everybody's got some decent stuff. I'm not too concerned about Mia, because after this chapter, I'm not going to be using her ever again. It depends on how much space I have in my unit selection, that is. So, where does that leave us off at? Okay, so I think that's about it. So, I'm definitely going to be awarding BXP off camera, and I'll be showing what my units get out of that. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the story and see where it unfolds from here. Well, shoot. Oh, crap. I knew it was a little too soon to be expecting that they'd suddenly just go away at this point. Oh god, that is devotion. Well, that one captain did mention that she didn't want to go back empty-handed lest she lose her head for going back. So, yeah, Dan really means business right now. Casualties don't concern them, apparently. Go back in the kitchen, damn it. Um, Oh, that's important. You should probably take a look at that. Is that how it operates, though? Is that? Alright, so yeah, I guess we will have Mia for this chapter for sure. So, anywho, we're gonna be awarding some BXP off camera, and I will be seeing you guys in the next part where we take on this chapter. So, see you guys then.